Welcome back to One Piece Explained. Episode 4 of the One Piece live action series by Netflix and Tomorrow Studios is a lot of action in a single setting, and as such, doesn't lend too well to having a ton of Easter eggs and missable details. However, I did my best to track down the ones that seemed the most interesting to talk about. Of course, these breakdowns are not meant to be reviews for the episode, nor are they meant to point out every single change or adaptation they made, just mostly Easter eggs and interesting details. As always, these live action breakdowns are intended for longtime fans as well as new fans, so I won't be discussing any big reveals not mentioned or stated in the show. However, I will talk about characters, settings, and story arcs in a general sense. And with all of that said, let's get into the breakdown for episode 4. The Pirates Are Coming. This episode starts out with Zoro stuck at the bottom of the well after being thrown in there by the Black Cat Pirates in the previous episode. Now this may be a nod to the classic line from the source material where Mihawk denounces Zoro as just a frog croaking in a well. Zoro being stuck here and trying to scale it could also be seen as a light adaptation of his time being stuck at the bottom of a hill covered in oil as in the source material. Very simple, straightforward storytelling going on back then. The title card comes in, and this one is themed after Zoro, with his personal Jolly Roger making up the O, and his sword, the Wado Ichimonji, replacing the I in peace. We get Zoro's flashback in this episode, and it's been restructured from the source material to take place now, leading up to the events in episode 5, whereas in the manga, this all took place during Shellstown, back in chapter 5. We're introduced to Koshiro, Zoro's teacher as a child, and his daughter Kuina. Notice the crest that decorates the setting as well as everyone's clothing. This is the symbol of the Shimotsuki family, and we later find out in this episode that Koshiro and Kuina bear the name Shimotsuki. This is a very interesting move in the live action, as in the source material, we wouldn't be able to confirm this connection until over 1,000 chapters after the introduction of these characters. For about 2 decades, we were just to assume that Shimotsuki was the name of the village until we found out Koshiro and Kuina were from the same bloodline as the village's founders in Volume 105's SBS. Now, I won't go any deeper than this here, since despite this big reveal being made up front in this show, there's still much more left to be discovered for new fans. But since the show addressed it, I figure I should as well. Most of the flashback is adapted 1-to-1, with Zoro challenging Kuina to a duel with real blades and Kuina accepting, and then foreshadowing her death in some way by telling Zoro he better be ready to fight like he'll kill her. I forgot to include this in my last breakdown, but in the kitchen, you can make out these pictures on the walls of what look to be dogs, a stark contrast from the cats that have infiltrated the mansion, and there's actually just a lot of dog decor around the mansion itself. We see later in this episode, Luffy and Zoro use a small statue of a dog to prop the shutter up. Also on the wall is a clock reading Vivere, Ridere, Amare. Now this is Italian for love, laugh, love, and although there is no explicit concept of real-world languages such as Italian in the One Piece world, this isn't just another example of an unobfuscated prop like we talked about in the previous episode, as if you look closer you can read the East Blue Electric Clock Company. Now, there do exist clocks in the world of One Piece, but some people may have wondered across the series, why do certain places have electricity, or just how advanced is the technology exactly? Now, the world of One Piece is vast and wildly anachronistic, and without getting too deep into spoilers, part of the experience of reading or watching One Piece is slowly moving through the story that starts off very simple or old-timey, and then realizing that anything and everything is possible as you progress through it. That said, electricity and technology does exist in the world of One Piece to varying extents, though it is not often equally distributed across the world. Just in this series, we've seen very basic settings such as Windmill Village or Shellstown, or even Syrup Village, but Kaya's wealthy estate seems to have electricity and items such as record players or even this house lockdown mechanism. We get the full reveal of the Black Cat Pirates in their source material outfits, and I love this adaptation. In hindsight, it's pretty clever how they adapted Sham's outfit from the source material into being part of a maid or butler's outfit in this series, and they even gave Bucci the goofy mask and cape. It's great. One departure, however, is that in the source material, they also had gloves with sharpened nails to fight with, while here, Sham is given a sword, while Bucci seems to have these blades. I also love that these weapons were hidden in plain sight among the regular working equipment they were using that we initially saw them with in episode 3, as Sham's sword extends from the mop she was using, while Bucci's knife was part of his regular cooking equipment. Kuro tries to attack Kaya and stabs through what looks to be a portrait of her mother. Now in the source material, Jango suggests that Kuro killed Kaya's parents, but Kuro denies this and says that that wasn't part of his plan. And in this series, we were told that they died at sea. We get some more of Zoro's flashback as they prepare to duel, nodding to these panels from the manga, though in the source material, the battle took place at night under a full moon. While the Marines are dragging Luffy away, we find that Luffy has survived through the poison soup and asks for meat before projectile vomiting all over Helmeppo. In the source material, Luffy has been poisoned several times throughout the series and eventually even builds up an immunity to it, and so this may just be a nod to that. Kuina's death in the live action is spared the ridiculousness that's associated with it in the source material, where she dies due to falling down the stairs, and I know that in some contexts, falling down the stairs can be used as a euphemism for your parents beating you, so I can definitely understand not wanting to suggest the idea that Koichiro killed his own daughter. And while it does come off a little more mysterious in the live action, I think it does well to convey the fragility of life and how abrupt or sudden death can be. Zoro asks for Kuina's sword, and Koishiro's response is a little more fitting here in the live action than in the source material, where there's little resistance from his side. He says that it's a rare blade, and that's because the Wado Ichimonji is one of the 21 great grade blades. In the world of One Piece, there is this concept known as meito, sometimes translated as famous or named blades, and there are various categories of these blades that denote their strength and potential, but the concept itself doesn't actually come up that often throughout the series. Though, I should note, the Old Viz translation suggested that there are 40 fine grade swords in Chapter 97, when there are actually 50. Now, I've seen a lot of confusion on how exactly Luffy knew it was Klahadore or Kuro who was behind everything. You could chalk it up to how Luffy is pretty good at instinctually recognizing a threat in the source material. However, it's not impossible that he was somewhat conscious during the conversation between the Black Cat pirates in the kitchen, and he put things together from that. Either way, Zoro reunites with Luffy, attributing his ability to find Luffy to him actually going the wrong direction from the mansion. This is a nod to his poor sense of direction from the source material. And back inside the mansion, Kaya and Nami try to rush Kuro, but he catches them and recreates this great scene from the source material where he threatens to kill Sham and Buchi. Over in the lobby of the mansion, Zoro engages in combat with Sam and Buchi just like in the source material, and Sham remarks that maybe this time they should keep his swords, referring back to the prior episode when she didn't let Buchi take them in an effort to get rid of all the evidence. This can also be seen as a nod to Sham's cat burgling ability in the source material, where he takes Zoro's swords, which he actually ends up doing with the Wado Ichimonji later in this episode. While fighting Luffy, Kuro goes on a rant about what it means to be a pirate captain, much like in the manga, and in doing so, he says that he's killed more crewmates than he's cared to remember. This is a nod to his attack dubbed the cat out of the bag attack in the Viz translation, where he runs about slashing everyone in his vicinity indiscriminately. Now, this could also be the reason why he only has Sham and Buchi left as part of his crew in this series, as opposed to leaving the entirety of his crew with Jango like in the source material. Speaking of Jango, since we did see his bounty poster in Shellstown, I like to think that he's alive, and he had already departed from the crew and is just beginning to carry out the events of his cover story. As in the source material, we see that his bounty poster is still active and Marines are looking for him during his time on Mirrorball Island. Perhaps he'll even be able to meet up with Lieutenant Fullbody soon, as we see him in the next pair of episodes. Back in the lobby, Buchi jumps up and tries to stomp down on Zoro. This could be seen as a nod to his catapult catastrophe technique from the source material, and then back over with Luffy and Kuro, they continue their exploration of what it means to be a pirate, and we get some lines from Luffy that are core to the series that is One Piece. That to be a pirate is to embrace freedom, as well as not giving up on your dreams. But eventually, Luffy's able to overpower Kuro and recreates his Gum Gum bell from the source material to finish Kuro off and send him flying out of the mansion. While things wrap up, we get the shot of the overhead of the lobby, where you can make out two ships to the right. Now this one bears a striking resemblance to the Oro Jackson, the ship used by the Roger Pirates, while this one reminds me a lot of the Bezon Black, the ship used by the Black Cat Pirates. Now on the ceiling are these little pictures that are a bit harder to make out. They look to be aquatic life of some sorts, but there's also these geometric shapes and these very particular straight lines within them. Given this and the idea that there are at least 12 of them in total, these could be depictions of constellations. In the aftermath of everything, Luffy smiles at Nami as he proves his initial plan of not having to steal a ship, and so the crew gets to going merry. Here, Luffy acknowledges how similar the masthead looks to Mary and thus names the ship after him, while in the source material, Mary doesn't actually die from Kuro's attack, and instead, he is the one who ends up gifting the crew the ship that he designed. As the crew sets sail, we get a rendition of the iconic opening, "We Are." Meanwhile, we see that Kuro has also made his escape by himself, a departure from the source material of course, where his crew takes him with them, though this could also be seen as a nod to Jango's cover story, where Jango leaves Syrup Village in a similar fashion. And as we start to close out the episode, we finally get the scene where Usopp shows off his artistic skills with his own Jolly Roger that got partially adapted in the last episode with Luffy drawing the deformed Straw Hat Jolly Roger. Though the Straw Hats now find themselves under attack from the Marines, and Zoro has an outfit change here, wearing an outfit inspired from his appearance on Chapter 28's cover story. Luffy looks over and realizes that the one attacking them is actually Kobe and Luffy's grandfather, Garp. Now, this is probably the biggest departure from the source material, as in the manga, Luffy and Garp don't meet until way later on after the events of the Enies Lobby arc. In fact, until this point, Garp isn't even a proper character in the story, other than his brief appearances during the Kobe Meppo cover story and the Jango cover story, as he's depicted with his doghood during those cameos. So, chapter 431 is the first time we see his face in the mainline story. There's also no hint or suggestion that this dog-hooded Vice Admiral is actually Luffy's grandfather at all, so this moment comes as a huge shock for readers. And I'm sure this surprise is somewhat maintained for new viewers of this live-action series, but there are definitely some things lost when not having the mysterious Vice Admiral linger in the back of a reader's mind for hundreds of chapters, only to be paid off with this big reveal. And of course, we have some new credits maps. There's one of Mirror Ball Island, where Jango's cover story took place, but we have another shot of the Gecko Island maps, though this time with a pair of glasses and some writing equipment in view. We also get a close-up of Shimotsuki Village, where Zoro's flashback took place, as well as Sixth Island right below it. And with all of this, the full East Blue map is updated to showcase all the islands that have been covered or hinted at, and as we can see, the newly acquired Going Merry Sailing Away is present as well. And that's about it for this one. Very short breakdown for this episode, as there were not too many little details that we didn't cover in the previous episode, since the majority of this one took place in the mansion. However, the last 4 episodes of the season have a ton of stuff in them, with new settings and new plot developments, so stay tuned as we're definitely in for a treat. If there's anything you noticed or want to talk more about, let me know in the comments. I love to see what you all have to say. If you haven't subscribed yet, I'd really appreciate it if you do. And as always, thank you for watching, stay safe, and I hope to see you in the next one.